do this. I've done this exercise a bunch of times, and I figured I would do it again as time has passed. Probably 2 or 3 years since I did it last, and it always, to me, came down to the fact that if you were going to beat Alabama, your quarterback had to be great. And I was on record in the mid 2010s that like LSU's not going to beat this guy, not going to beat this team until your quarterback is either wearing 18 or going first in the draft. And that guy showed up. They went first in the draft, and they beat him. And that was something that I was adamant about and remain adamant about to this day. And Charlie did a good segment to open his show yesterday. You can go back and listen to it on demand, YouTube, wherever you find your on-demand stuff. Said, look, A&M had a chance to beat him. Their quarterback didn't play that great. Texas had a chance to beat him. The quarterback was fine. Arkansas was down 5. None of these guys set the world on fire. And that's true. We went through that in the first segment here. And those teams absolutely had a chance to beat Alabama. But they didn't. Mm-hmm. And Tennessee did. And their quarterback went nuts. And so I went back to the last 7 losses, and I fully admit up front am telling you, it is the last 7 losses where Alabama's starting quarterback played and the backup didn't throw 2 pick sixes. For the purpose of this exercise, I have taken the 2019 Auburn-Alabama game and thrown it out. Tua was hurt. Mac Jones threw 2 pick sixes. Bo Nix didn't play worth a flip that day, but Auburn still won the game. I've taken it out. I'm being selective. Our show, my show, we can do that. I'm taking it out. So it's the other 7 losses this Alabama team has had. I'll go on record to say this. If Bryce Young gets hurt, doesn't play, and they bring in Milton, he comes in, or whatever his name is, and he throws 2 pick sixes, LSU's got a pretty good chance to win. That'll be my analysis of that if it happens. So we'll take that out, and we'll go with the rest of it. These are the games we're looking at. In 2022, Hendon Hooker and Tennessee beat them. 2021, Zach Calzada and A&M, Stetson Bennett and Georgia beat them. 2019, Joe Burrow and LSU beat them. 2018, Trevor Lawrence and Clemson beat them in the national championship game. 2017, Jarrett Stidham and Auburn beat them. And in 2016, Deshaun Watson and Clemson beat them. These guys, the last 7 quarterbacks to beat Alabama, 7 games, have completed 70% of their throws for 327 yards per game with 19 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
Hendon Hooker this year, 21 of 30 for 385 and 5 touchdowns. Calzada last year, 21 of 31, 285, 3 touchdowns. Burrow, 31 of 39, 393, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Trevor Lawrence out in California, 20 of 32, 347, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Deshaun Watson, national championship game, 36 of 56 for 420, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. If your alpha quarterback doesn't show up, he can be Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, or Zach Calzada. If that guy doesn't show up, you're not going to beat them. Period.
Yeah, no, and I think a huge part of that, those turnover numbers for all those quarterbacks, they're not turning the ball over at an alarming clip, giving that Alabama offense those short fields to go score. So that's a huge part to do it in, and I think that's always what you need when you're talking about one of the top 1, 2, 3 teams in the country. That's just the brand of football you're going to need, throwing Alabama just out the picture. You're going to have to play a really great brand of football because you're talking about 4 stars, 5 stars. You heard my boy Lane talk about it. There's just 5 stars everywhere. Well, yeah, that's what you're going to see when you play Alabama, and there's just going to be talent everywhere. And then now this year you got a quarterback that's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. So you got to play just about perfect football. You got to have your special team show up, and you're going to have your quarterback go out there and really be laser focused on out there executing at a high level, going 3 and out a bunch, turning the ball over a bunch, not throwing for yards, not having touchdowns. It's not the old days. You don't have that entire LSU defense from 2011 where you can just go out there and score 9 points and say, hey, we'll probably win this game. Saban's threw that book out the window. He wants to score points. He's spreading you out just like everyone else, and winning the game with 9 points on the board against Alabama. Those days are just long gone. So you're gonna have to have your quarterback go out there and execute at an extremely high level.
I've got numbers for that too. Listen to this. Hendon Hooker, as I mentioned, went 21 of 30 for 385 and 5 touchdowns with a pick. 385 and 5 touchdowns. They won the game by 3 points. Zach Calzada, game of his life, 285 and 3 scores. They beat Bama by 3 points. Burrow, as I mentioned, 31 of 39 for 393, 3 touchdowns and a pick, and no picks. You can't play any better than that. Won by 5. Deshaun Watson threw for 420 and 3 touchdowns with no picks. They won the game on the last play of the game by 4. Yep. So not only are these quarterbacks lighting it up, they're winning by a score, a field goal in some instances. Yep. Yeah, look, Trevor Lawrence and that Clemson got after him 44-19. Trevor did throw for 347 and 3 touchdowns that night. But it's the margin is thin. And do I think Nick Saban in a heartbeat would flip and switch and go back to 2011 and put 11 guys out there that were dominating every offense and nobody could cross the line of scrimmage? Yeah, he'd rather play it that way, but he knows he can't. And they're still really good at this way because they've got quarterbacks over the last 5 years that can light it up.
Yeah, no, and that's what you see. I mean, you got to think about, obviously, I hate to even say it, but probably the best, college coach you've ever seen do it. And then he's trotting out there some of the best players that are, you can find in the country every single year in and year out. So to think you're just going to trot out there, sleepy through the game, we're going to just dominate these guys. It's just not one of those teams. He's got to have those guys ready to play. And even when they are sleeping, they've had some of those games this year where they got a bunch of penalties and, they're not playing that brand of football, bonehead turnovers, and they're still not getting blown off the field. They're still right in that game. Everyone talks about that explosive Tennessee offense and just how well they played and how many points they scored. They won by 3 points. They're a missed field goal away from losing that football game, even with that electric performance on offense. So, you got to bring your big boy britches every time you play Alabama. They're going to be well coached. They're going to be ready to play. And it seems like whatever reason it is, every time they come to Death Valley, it's just like a different level of focus when they come here. So you just got to have to come ready to play because they're going to be a team who's ready to go. And they know what's at stake in this football game, especially with their season being on the line here.
So the cumulative stats, once again, to reinforce the point, these quarterbacks, 70% completion, 19 touchdowns and 2 picks, averaging 327 a game. The question now is, can Jayden Daniels do that? Can he go out there, throw for 315 yards and 2 or 3 scores, not turn it over, run it for 90 more and another score, and keep up? Is he capable of that?
If Zach Calzada can do it, I think I'm going to go on the line here and say my boy JD5 can probably pull a rabbit out the hat and find a way to get it done, especially with kind of the way you've seen him play these last 2 weeks and just the confidence coming from that locker room. I think he's kind of, got a lot more comfortable than we've seen, and Coach Denbark's kind of got him playing the way he wants to play. So if my man Zach can do it, I'm going to go, I got to say my man JD5 can do it.
We know the mobile guys who've given him a tough time. Johnny comes to mind clearly. You beat him one time and scored a ton of points in the 2013 game as well. We know that Nick Marshall gave him a little bit of trouble running around. He ran for 100 yards in that game that they won in the kick 6. The other guys that I've mentioned, Burrow did run a good bit in that game, but Jarrett Stidham's not going to kill you outside the pocket. Deshaun Watson's not going to kill you outside the pocket. Trevor Lawrence is not going to kill you outside the pocket. They're athletic guys, but none of those guys are going to kill you outside the pocket. Daniels is a little bit of a different threat, and certainly a guy that I think could give them some problems. The best way to help out with a Will Anderson pass rush if one of your tackles gets beat is just to have Jayden Daniels run away from him, and that may be what it takes every once in a while in the game. You can't make a living doing it like they tried to in the Florida State game in the first half, but it does help if Will Anderson wins pretty clean 5 times and 4 of them Jayden Daniels runs away and picks up 7 yards. That's one way to help. Saban can neutralize your running back. Leonard Fournette couldn't do squat. He can take out your best receiver. In the 2 games they played in 2011, Ruben Randall was a total non-factor. He was the best wide receiver on that team, and they couldn't get him the football. He can't take the ball away from your quarterback. That's the guy that's got to go win the game. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and that's something that, I heard a lot from Coach Belichick. It's a new factor in football, especially when you're a team that likes to run man coverage, just like Alabama does. They're going to run a ton of man coverage, a ton of press man, let that defensive line get after you and hope those guys get home before guys can create separation. And the biggest counter for that is a quarterback that can break that contain, break that pocket. Now you got, 5 or 6 guys in coverage chasing after guys, and then your quarterback's, he's hitting the second level, and that's very, very difficult to do, especially when you got 2 edge rushers who I think they're going to want to get out of those pass rush lanes. They're not going to do the mush rush and just sit there, hang out at the line of scrimmage. Let's watch. They're going to be coming after JD5, and the worst thing you can do as a quarterback, as a defense, is give that quarterback those rush lanes to really get to that second level. We know how fast JD5 is, and then now you got everyone in man coverage. It's very, very difficult to do. So I rarely see Saban really spying and putting guys that way. He's normally just going to rush those 4 and, match you up man to man. And I think this kind of opens up the door for JD5 to kind of have one of those traditional matchups we've seen with quarterbacks using their legs to kind of, blitz some of these Saban defenses.
I don't know whether LSU's going to win or lose on Saturday, but it will come down to how the quarterback plays. I can tell you that is almost a relative certainty.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.